Welcome to Quadep Econs Academy. This is your place to sharpen your critical skills for exams and real-life application. Today we're going to look at the income approach to GDP. When we talk about GDP, which is Gross Domestic Product, we are talking about the monetary value or market value of all final goods and services produced within the borders of a country over a given period of time, usually 1 year. So the key concept we're picking from here is market value. So whatever we're going to do today, our focus will be on market value. Now let's proceed. When we are talking about the income approach to GDP, it is about adding all the factor incomes. So in the simplest form, let's assume that we have these factor incomes: wages for labor, rent for land, interest for capital, and profit for entrepreneurship. Now these are the factor incomes. Although in real life there could be other terms, let's start with the simplest concept, assuming that the factor incomes are of these four forms. Now, when we're doing the income approach, what we should put in mind is that the moment we add all the factor incomes for all the factors of production employed in production within the domestic economy, then we straight away arrive at NDP at factor cost, which is net domestic product at factor cost. Later, I will come to explain why I'm saying this, that when we add all the factor incomes of all the factors used in production within the domestic economy, we straight away arrive at net domestic product at factor cost. After we have derived the formula for the income approach to GDP, I will take time to explain this first relation. So we can proceed by this. What we have here, we started at, that is net domestic product at factor cost. The moment we add depreciation, we come back to gross domestic product at factor cost. This is because when you add depreciation to net domestic product at factor cost, that gives you gross domestic product at factor cost. So from this very first relation that we started with, we proceed by adding depreciation to arrive at GDP at factor cost. Now, from the definition, our focus was on market value. So having GDP at factor cost means that we have to move on some few steps further. So what we're saying here is that we have GDP at factor cost. But from the definition, our interest is to get GDP at market value or at market price. How do we do? When you go through our earlier lesson, we showed clearly that whenever we have a value at factor cost and we want to convert it to market price, all that we do is that we add indirect tax, because when we take our goods to the market, indirect tax will affect the price, and how it will appear on the market will be different from how it was produced at factor cost because of the difference of indirect tax. So today, one of our duties is to add indirect tax. Not that alone. The goods that we have on the market, their prices appear lesser than they should be whenever government grants subsidy to production. If we don't include indirect tax, then what it means is that the value that we put for GDP will be less than how it will appear on the market. Again, when government grants subsidy, it goes to reduce the cost of production. And because of that, profits appear higher than they should be. So without subtracting the subsidy, the value for GDP we quote would be misleading. So now we have arrived at the formula for the income approach to GDP. What this relation is telling us is that when we are using the income approach to GDP, first we need to add up all the factor incomes. So we take labor, the factor income for labor being wages or salaries or whatever form of employee compensation we pick it. We also pick the factor income for land, which is rent. It could be royalty or whatever, we add them. We also pick factor income for capital, which is interest. And then we also pick factor income for owners of businesses, which is profit. Then profit could also come in the form of corporate profit. And when we take corporate profit, it consists of dividend, corporate profit tax, and undistributed profit. The three together will give you corporate profit. We pick all these components of income, even including mixed income, something like proprietor's income. Then we add it. After adding all the factor incomes, we go ahead to add depreciation. And then we also go ahead to add indirect tax. And finally, we subtract subsidies. When we do this, we get our GDP from the income approach. So that is how we do it. Now that we have established the relation that will give us GDP using the income approach, we move ahead to look at the first relation. Why did we start by saying that when we add all the factor incomes in the domestic economy, it is equal to net domestic product at factor cost? We want to prove this. And the moment we prove that, I know you will be confident by proceeding from the first relation, going through to the last one, whenever you want to find GDP by the income approach. We assume a closed economy. So for now, there is no external sector. And in the closed economy, we are interested in all the factor incomes. So for simplicity, we say that our wages, rents, interest, profit, when we add them, that is equal to our factor income. And we denote the factor income by FI. When we go back to observe the lesson on the circular flow of income, which we did for the closed economy, we see that the factor income is the same as our national income. In that closed economy, the factor income was the same as our national income. Now, we also know that national income is the same as our net national product at factor cost. When we look at the lesson on the steps to move from GDP to national income, we will see that when we arrive at net national product at factor cost, we have arrived at national income. So essentially what we are saying now is that in a closed economy like this, when we have factor income, it is the same as our national income, and that is the same as our net national product at factor cost. This net national product at factor cost, let's try to understand it a bit further how it is. So we are expanding this analysis to the open economy. When we talk about open economy, we basically saying that there's the domestic economy and then there's an external economy. So within the domestic economy, we see that there are two classes of factors of production. Factors of production for our nationals in the blue color and factors of production of foreigners in the red color. all operate in the domestic economy. Also, in an open economy, factors of production of our nationals operate outside. That is, also go to work in the external economy. And we also have factors of production of the foreigners operating in the external economy, which happens to be their home economy. Now, with this, what do we say? There are important terms that we have to acquaint ourselves with. Our factors of production that operate in the external economy, the income that they earn, we call it factor income from abroad, denoted as FIA. We also have factor income paid abroad, and that is the income earned to factors of production of foreigners producing or operating in the domestic economy. Let's go back a bit. When we talk about net national product at factor cost, we are talking about the totality of factor incomes earned to our nationals' assets. So in an external economy like this, part of the factor income earned to the factors of production of our nationals is here and part is there. This part and that part will give us the net national product at factor cost. So if the part here is FIA, then we can simply say that the part within here is the same as net national product at factor cost minus FIA. So it's so simple. This plus that should give us NNP at factor cost. And now, the portion outside is FIA. So we can say that what is within is NNP at factor cost minus FIA. With this understanding, let's now remove the external sector and focus on only the domestic economy, because that is where we're going to get our GDP. Alright, in this domestic economy, what do we see? We see that all factors of production that have been employed have earned this form of income. Foreigners' factors of production have earned FIPA, factor income paid abroad. And those of our nationals home is NNP at factor cost minus FIA. So let's add the two together. How do we get? We get NNP at factor cost minus FIA, which is the first portion, plus FIPA. So now, what we are saying here is that all the factor incomes produced within the domestic economy consist of two parts. This part for foreigners and this part for our nationals. So essentially, when you add the two, what you are doing is that you are adding all the factor incomes earned in the domestic economy, all the factor incomes. So all these factor incomes, when you add them, it is equal to NNP at factor cost minus FIA plus FIPA. But we see that NNP at factor cost minus FIA plus FIPA is the same as NDP at factor cost, our net domestic product at factor cost. So if all the incomes earned in the domestic economy is equal to this part, which is the same as net domestic product at factor cost, then we can start our income approach analysis by quoting that NDP at factor cost is equal to all factor incomes earned in the domestic economy. And this is where we proceeded. So that is the explanation for why we proceeded with this relation. I thank you for watching. I urge you to subscribe, like, and share to promote my channel. where I was moving fast, I urge you to pause or reverse for clear understanding. Bye.